Hello, hello, everyone. Stephanie Lucrezio coming to you live on this rainy, gross Sunday, New Jersey afternoon. And I have on the call with me two of my amazing friends, fellow freedom warriors, people who are really committed to keeping freedom in front of mind first and foremost in the times that we're living in. We know 2020 has been a very challenging year on so many different levels. So being able to have these conversations and to connect and create like-minded, like-hearted circles is super important right now. So I'm so happy to welcome for the first time, both of you, first time on the show, Amani Mamulation and Tara Thornton from the Freedom Angels. Welcome, ladies. I'm so happy to be here with you. And my Wi-Fi is cooperating.
Yeah. Hey, Steph, I can't believe we've never been on a call, like an official program together like this.
We're on the phone all day, every day.
I know.
I don't know, but it was definitely way overdue. So I want to just start, because for many of the people in my audience, they may not have had the pleasure and privilege of meeting and speaking with you. So why don't we just start first by doing a quick introduction. You guys tell us a little bit about yourself and why we're here. So who wants to go first? We'll start with Amani since she's next to me. Let's go.
Well, thanks, Steph, for having on. It's, I feel like we've all been circling around each other, and it's been nice to really link arms and move more into strategy. I feel like many of us have been sort of, it's interesting, right? Isolated in our own battles. In a sense, we've mobilized with people in our communities, but right now, this past 6 months or more has really motivated us to mobilize beyond our borders. And actually, in the isolation, we've actually become more united. And what I hear all the time is that the level and the quality and the authenticity and the relationships and the partnerships, like the strategic partnerships, I think we've all up leveled. And so I've been able to do that, through the New Earth platform. A lot of people listening, to Sasha Stone, and I've facilitated the Reclaim Your Lives in the Line of the event thing, summit, and Tara was on that with a lot of other seminal voices. So I've literally been in, 70 conversations since March specific to what's going on in the world, and been able to really connect the dots and build our network. And that's just been extraordinary to see that we aren't working this alone. There's many more of us than we probably ever imagined. So I think that's really one of the things that I really want to bring out to people, is that you're not alone. We have a powerful, powerful network that's just getting stronger and stronger every single day.
Yeah, we certainly do. And I just came from a rally, actually in my own backyard, which was amazing because I didn't have to drive an hour and a half to get to it. And I heard that in New Jersey, that there is like a giant Trump parade down in Monmouth County all the way through certain areas like on 287, and that the roads are crazy because there are thousands of cars out with their flags. I saw 2 cars at this rally that actually went so far as to have Trump painted on their cars themselves. So it's a very patriotic weekend. I think a lot of people from the quote unquote silent majority and the people who feel like they're isolated and alone are starting to recognize that there's a lot more people out there like us than the news will even allow for us to realize. So Tara, I know that you are always out there on the front lines doing the thing, inspiring people, getting people activated. We came up with this new term, general, which I didn't know in all our conversaknow. I had never heard this before. So I'm going to turn it over to General Tara Thornton from the Freedom.
Yeah, I do think there are lightning generals. I call them the lightning generals around the nation, and they're connecting together more and more. This year has been phenomenal for that because the need's been there. Prior to this, I've worked in the health freedom movement because I'm a mom who came up against a hard wall that I would not comply with and could not in good conscience for my child's, best health and well-being. And I think that's how any of us get moved to action. We have lines in the sand. We have lines that we will not cross. And if something precious to us, like our children or our freedom or our ability to make a living or our free movement of travel, if that gets impinged upon by something that is out of alignment with our core values and what we know to best be in our best, interest for health and well-being and humanities, really, because if it's in someone's best interest for their true health and well-being, it is aligned with humanity's well-being. Then we have to engage and take a stand. And prior to this, year, 2020, there was just a percentage-wise, a smaller group of people that were up against a hard wall. But we saw the control measures that were being put into place around the country, around the globe, that were really going to affect every person, because these are issues around body sovereignty, informed consent, human rights, civil rights. And so I have been working, like I said, since 2015 on this issue. And last year in California, when we had some legislation come through, they're called SB 276 and AB 262. And they were seminal pieces of legislation from the pharma and surveillance cartels that that really were, again, a preamble to 2020, what everyone's dealing with. They were giving power over to public health, local public health, to make emergency health decisions and have tyrannical powers. They were putting bureaucrats in charge of health decisions. They were putting people in databases, private, public databases with, government and surveillance companies and data companies. And they were narrowing the standard of care on medical exemptions so narrow for the medical exemption to vaccination is so narrow that functionally nobody qualifies for one. And this was California legislation, but it sets the bar. It becomes the gold standard, or the base standard for the nation, not just children in school, but adults in all walks of life. So last year, at the end in the summer, while we were in the legislative session, we got to the point where all informed consent had been given to all players and legislators and such, and it was really just moving along on an agenda, party lines. It's very much one party is very much tied to this agenda politically, and so it was moving along and there was nothing we could do. So we started civil disobedience. We literally said, well, we hit that wall, we're not going to comply. And there is nothing violent in that, I really want to say, because these actions were nonviolent. They're standing there as a mother, and saying, we're not going to comply with this tyranny, these unjust laws. And then we held an 11-day Occupy as well and shut down the Capitol, various things. It's actually an incredibly human and spiritually centered position to be in, that no, I'm not going to let you hurt my child, and I'm not going to let you violate fundamental human and civil rights. These are inalienable to all humans. So it's really an empowered position. I think I've told both of you, that I was never more free than in that moment that I said, done. You can't silence me. You can't shame me. You can't disconnect me from my inner knowing, from my truth, from everything that I know is right and aligned with God or Christ consciousness or divine design. You cannot separate me from that. And that really was an incredibly freeing moment. But that's how, we all find each other on this path. And this year has really put millions and millions and millions against that hard wall. And that's the beauty. The beauty of this is that now we're finding each other, because we're all up against this wall, whether it be for work or to have access to our elders in health, in nursing homes, or to right of worship, or for our children.
Yeah, there's a great awakening happening. I've said that one of the silver linings of this whole nightmare that has been 2020 is more so now than ever. I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that the people that are in those seats, in those offices, do not necessarily have the best interests of we the people. And I think what happens so often, and I'm sure both of you have seen this throughout your own work, is people often aren't activated until it really hits home for them and they could see what that translates to and how it affects their daily life. I mean, I'm reminded every day that I go into the job that I get paid to do when I have to wear a face shield to teach. It's something that you won't see me doing in any other place of my life. But they have me basically, handcuffed, get your paycheck and cooperate. And this is with the medical exemption. So it's starting to really hit home that one party, and I'm just going to be bold enough to say it because I think that I've said it a minute. The Democrats are after your body. The Democrats want to control, and not all Democrats, there are good ones like Jamel Hotley, we love him. But for the most part, that party has, it's like a Freudian slip of the tongue, that party has really come after us to basically control every aspect of our life. And I think that,
well, I think, Steph, it's just that they've been sold out. We've been bought. But that's if we look at the propaganda without getting on a political party, because I know that's such a hot topic, right? And that's the whole strategy is to divide and conquer. But if we just look at what's, just the facts and like the freedoms that are at the so close to being lost. I mean, and us coming together on a medical freedom platform, I think that's what's so beautiful about it, is that we're coming together, with our differences. It's so amazing that there's so many different people on the spectrum, but if we unify around, and it's all about unification, it's all about becoming unified. And I think what you touch on, Tara, is about really reclaiming our sovereignty and knowing that we've all willingly participated in this story that we're living out. It didn't happen just like overnight. Like, we willingly gave away some of our freedoms. So the power of the human spirit is to not consent and to not willingly participate. And I think this year has been, I hope, an educational process. I've learned a lot, and so many people that I am in connection with are also waking up to what we've been asleep to. We've been asleep at the wheel, whatever you want to say. And maybe some of us have been more awake and screaming from shouting from the mountaintops, on all kinds of issues, glyphosate and the vaccines and the 5G. But I also realized that some of the perception of that story that I had was a little off based on just how we've been sold the stories that we've been sold, particularly by certain political parties. And so I think that's where it gets interesting, and we come to terms with like really evaluating honestly what's just truth, And I think what we're uniting around is truth. Like, what's true, like true in yourself, and truth might be different to each person. But when we look at like how we're caring for the planet, how we're caring for our families, how we're caring for humanity, I think there is a core truth. Like there's some level of resonance, and I look at it more like as frequency and how we're all vibrating. So even if you look at if we're coming from love or coming from fear, so as long as we can maintain, and it's sort of like changing the narrative, right? Shifting the timeline, or a 5-dimensional reality is sort of like how I like to think of myself as operating from that higher frequency of love. Because if we look at the interactions around us, and if any of us, no matter what party, what color, what social economics, what age, if we're coming from fear, we're coming from hate, and we're coming from constriction, then I think that speaks volumes. And so that's where I'm trying to elevate the conversation to, is that higher frequency.
Fear is the virus. I mean, that's really what's killing everything, is fear and separation. So I think that the community that we're building and what we're working towards is so important now more than ever, because there is so much of it out there in the world, and people have lost their focus on what it is to be human, on what it is to be one and the same. It doesn't matter where you fall. It's really an us against them perspective, because we the people are so much stronger than any governing body that's out there. And once we recognize the power that we have as human beings, as individuals, when we are connected and together, that is really when we are most powerful. So I think that that's starting to slowly spring up all over the country, and that's why you're seeing all these people out in the streets in the rain and doing all kinds of crazy things, because people are craving that. And that's why we're here.
Connection, community.
Yeah. Yeah, and anything that's designed to separate us is not designed in our best interests as individuals and collectively for humanity. I know, as a strategist, we look at what's before us, and in this moment, kind of a historic moment around the globe, we're all up against what is called medical tyranny. This is really what it is, and they're using public health as the control measure to lay in structures of compliance with certain metrics, like wearing a mask or taking a test or getting a future vaccine. That's medical tyranny. That's health freedom. So that is really the global issue. And it is fundamentally comes up against human and civil rights. we are blessed in this country to have a constitution and a bill of rights, which is a weapon for us. It's not, it should be a free pass. It should be like, here's the Constitution, open that door, let me in. But it's become a sticky mess, right? Because we've got societal structures, murky human constructs that, people have bought into, and that becomes a juggernaut of liabilities and messaging and censorship. And I think the truth is that, strategically in this country, the Democratic Party has aligned their platform, and this is part of their platform. It's in their state and federal and national platforms. They've said it, that they're aligning with very strict control measures on that. So I think as a triage, like I like to say, look, I defect from all the parts that are BS. I don't care what party they're aligned with. If it's BS, I'm out of there. I'm not with it. I'm not in alignment. And so the beauty is there's now enough of us that we can say, look, you've played us into tribal politics to fight each other. And that was to undermine our true unity and our true shared, our shared stories, our rights, our inalienable rights, our true needs as human beings. So, for me, I look at this as triage right now. I'm like voting, who's going to support the Constitution? Who's going to support human rights on this issue? But beyond this, and this is critical at the ground up, because we need it at the local level, like everyone has learned. 2020 has taught us that, the school boards and the teachers unions and the boards of supervisors and county council commissioners and mayors are all involved. So from there, though, we need to be part of creating the solutions at the ground up of like, no, you're not going to divide us. You're not going to distract us. We trust that we're all on the same side of the table on this, that really humanity should pull each other closer, find real solutions, find real ways to make sure everyone's healthy and most protected and cared for. And so I think, we got kind of like an immediate thing we got to do in the next few days in the country. And then we've got our long term where we don't let ourselves be divided and played like this, because we are united as
I think about, when I think about a time in history where there was a lot happening and how humanity really came together. I'm a New Yorker. Someone said my Brooklyn came out. It does sometimes. But I think about September 11th. And that on record was like one of the worst things that I've ever lived through until 2020. And you look at how differently we moved as a nation, how differently we came together, because the message that was out there was more of unity, of coming together, of helping your neighbor, of supporting your neighbor. And that's really what we're up to. We want that united feeling in our country, as opposed to what's being told now: phone on your neighbor, call in this, make sure that you're reporting that. It's just a whole different come from. And the scary thing is that so much of our livelihood, so much of the things that we do on a daily basis are tied into all of these crazy policies. I mean, down to going out and having a family outing. If you're not willing to mask up and just be part of the mainstream way of doing things, you're constantly wondering, am I going to have a problem with my son next to me, going to a baseball game or to a museum? It's a really terrible time. So I think that that's where we have to dig deep and start to look at what it is that we want to create, because each and every one of us have two hands. But with these two hands, a lot of powerful things happen with this one voice or multiple voices talking about the same issue. We can really make a difference, but we have to be willing to listen from a place of heart-centered, really wanting to understand a person's intention and come from it. I think that that's the most special thing about the group of people that we're talking to every single day and strategizing with and trying to figure out how to build this new work economy, is we're all coming from that place of listening first. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, what political party you're affiliated, what the color of your skin is. We all want what's best for our children, for our families, and for ourselves. And we want to live that healthy, really vital, juicy, happy, joyful life. And that's what I think we're all up to. And in the next coming weeks and days, I think that there will be some darkness, but I think that it's always darkest before the dawn. And I'm starting to get really excited about what's possible. So let's talk a little bit about the possibilities.
Yeah, you know, Steph, it's like what you said, we're in that deconstruction phase. And sometimes that looks really dark, right? The most intensity comes before that transformation. And these are really alchemical times, but we're taking everything down. Obviously, like the schools, people who never imagined homeschooling, and doing it in a way where, you know, one of the things about homeschooling was isolation. And here they are, you know, isolating and homeschooling. It's really interesting, but we're breaking down the medical system. Obviously, people, you know, are taking that down with the pharmaceutical companies and everything being exposed. We're looking at the economy as deconstructing. I mean, I was on a live with David Martin yesterday, and Kevin and Christiane and Del and Sasha, and just like we talked about, like, how did we get here? We're just seeing the culmination of what's been in the work for decades. You know, so we're just seeing now what's been happening. And so it's like deconstructing before our eyes, like visually, everything is going down to the ground, like the phoenix rising from the ashes. So it's really up to us to rebuild our schools, rebuild our healthcare system, rebuild our economy, rebuild even all of these infrastructures that are no longer serving the way that they have been, right? So I think around that, you know, this week will be very interesting and intense in a lot of ways for a lot of people, but this time has given us that self-reflection and the ability to mobilize and come together. So those of us that are doing that and looking at ways that we can rebuild our communities with the infrastructure around our economy, because people have had to reinvent what their life work is. I mean, people have literally had time to, you know, change careers even, or say, is this what I really want? Or is this, you know, serving me? Or do I, you know, how do I want my children to be educated? Do I even want to live where I'm living? You know, I mean, everything is up for grabs right now. And so I think us coming together and mobilizing and sharing with others the strategies that we're doing and the information and the resources we have is really paramount right now, in a time where people might be feeling like there is no hope. We just want to say that I'm excited like you. I mean, I feel like this is like, you know, that moment before the dawn. Like, it's our time. This is why we came here.
I feel the same way, you know, especially because, you know, it doesn't end just with an election, any election. This is a process, and there was suffering and hurting in the world prior to March. This is our opportunity now to reset, to reimagine everything. What does it mean for us to be alive? What does it mean for us to, you know, be parents? And what kind of education do we really want for our children and ourselves? What kind of work? All of it. And the beauty of it is that we have all found that we're not alone in this, and that the hard wall that we're up against gives us the motivation to find these solutions. And you guys know, I believe it, our solutions are our best weapon against the tyranny, and it's also our, you know, the way to actually get through each day. It's that stable thread of connectivity, of meaning, and of action that will be like, okay, I can take the next step forward in this day through this time. Because one thing we do know is this is unstable times, and it will continue to be unstable even after the election. It'll just be a reshifting terrain. We'll see, what does it look like in my county, in my town, in my country. But it's still, you know, it's still terrain that we will be navigating now, not alone. We have each other, and as we find the different solutions, the real world solutions, to have more sovereignty in both how we educate, how we create, you know, grow food and get our food supply is critical, as is the way that we have streams of income coming in to support what we need to do together.
Yeah, and I think that that's something recently. I mean, I've been a serial entrepreneur for many years, and when I moved to New Jersey, I fell in love with teaching yoga and being in that space, and just really loved who I was in that role, what it did for my soul. Like, it was just amazing. And while I still love yoga and I still love teaching yoga, you know, obviously everything has changed, and it's like doing all of these things in order to just be in the building, to be able to be around people. You know, the community is different. Instead of people embracing each other and wanting to be close to each other, everyone's socially distant on their mats and no one talks to each other. So it's It's a very different feeling out there. And for the first time, I'm back to that place of, I don't want to have my eggs in someone else's basket. Like, I want my own basket. I want to be able to grow everything on my own and make sure that I'm completely sustainable for myself, by myself, without having to sacrifice my integrity and my deeply held beliefs about what I feel to be true, what I feel to be healthy, what I feel about the way that I want to operate as a human and the way that I want my family to operate. And nothing is certain. The one thing I know for sure right now is that there is no certainty with anything. We don't know what the next week is going to look like. We don't know what the next 6 months are going to look like. So I think that there comes a point where you just have to say, okay, you know what, where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm going to make my own way. And that's really what we're up to right now, is not only making our own way, but being able to reach down to people that are feeling the same way. I mean, I'm seeing people on here. Christina saying that she's terrified because she needs to figure out how to keep her job in high school when the vaccine comes. I mean, the fear is real. You know, whether it's the vaccine that you're worried about having to wear a mask every day and suffer and be uncomfortable there. We're all dealing with a high level of discomfort. And the only way to quell that anxiety is to take action and to have a plan. So that's what we're looking to do, is to reach down to our communities and to assist them with having a contingency plan, with having an exit plan, with knowing if things go in a certain direction, we as humans, as individuals, are in charge of our own destiny.
Yeah, you know, it's really about stepping into our sovereignty. And I talk about this being this is the love language that we're all learning, because it's like music to the ears. But so many of us haven't really understood what that meant. And literally, I think in our country, maybe taken freedom for granted, right? And then having the illusions of freedom. So I think as we're relearning this and we're remembering that we are sovereign, that we also look at different kind of models of abundance. Because if we really look on, and I've been doing the Brave New Life conversations with Sovereign, where we talk about syntropy, sovereignty, and based on agroforestry, which Tara can relate to because she works with the earth, you know, as someone who works with plants. But when we look at this kind of from that perspective, and we know that there is the abundance and there is enough for everyone, and we really move out of the scarcity paradigm, which we have all been programmed to participate in. I know I had to work through my own money stories, and I decided a couple of years ago to have multiple revenue streams and be in a position where I could control my life, you know, or be in control and not deal with the situations that you just described. So there is a certain pathway for that. And, you know, we're outlining, and then weeks to come, sharing some of those strategies through our soulful sovereignty, as Tara calls it, to just share with people what we're up to. So I would invite anyone to participate in that. We're going to have one, you know, this afternoon. And then I think also right now before this election, it's just great for people to connect and like have a sense of hope, and that people are actually moving towards solutions and not just staying in a paralyzed state of fear and rolling over and, you know, just accepting whatever. So it's empowering. And that's where I think when we realize, again, our numbers, we see the power when we come together, really even as women in collaboration and co-creation, that when we remember that power and remember our sovereignty, that's what's going to be the change for the new earth that we want to create for 7 generations and more forward.
That is so right. You know, and the beautiful thing is you start making the steps towards this, and you make that decision, we make that decision inside ourselves, and we start, like, you know, you say, Steph, having a plan. You start to meet the people that are doing the same thing. They're making the plan too. They're taking the steps. And this is a complete reimagining. So it's like, you might think you're like, let me figure out how I'm going to deal with my job because I'm a teacher and they're going to want to, you know, I'm going to be required to have a vaccine. And then suddenly you realize you are reimagining your life with people in a way that you know, from your health to your children and where you'll be living and how you're bringing in money from multiple ways. And it really opens up a whole new thing. It's really taking, you know, finding that decision, you're making that decision within yourself, and then connecting in on the plan with the others doing it. And that's really where the magic is, because we're all in that place right now together, and we all have each other and need each other. And that connectivity is part of our stability, because we are definitely pioneering new territory together. And that is one of the things, like, please, whoever might be watching us, you know, don't, we none of us are alone in this, even though we, you know, we all have our own journey, and it looks us, everyone has their own unique situation and moment they're in right now. We aren't alone, and we're going to pioneer this together. We're literally like a band of, you know, warriors and freedom lovers, and those grateful for this life, this gift that this life is, and we're going to go make the most of it together.
Yeah, live it to the utmost. Well, it's like you said, Tara, when you make that stake in the ground, or when you, it's again that vibration, right? You resonate that, you attract that, and so there are those that can reinforce your position, but there's something within where you need to put that stake in the ground, or follow what you call the true north, right? So if you follow your truth, everything sort of just you start to create this other field around you, and you can shift into amazing things. And that's really what we want to invite people to participate in, is us shifting together as we really elevate humanity at this most important time on the planet.
Absolutely. And also, so the thing about working together is not only are you creating the plan, but you're also able to really surround yourself with people who are going to elevate you as a human. Because the truth of the matter is, if 2020 hasn't tested you, I don't know where you're living, but it's tested all of us. And I think that we've all had to up-level ourselves and what it looks like to live through these uncertain, uncomfortable times. So not being alone, having encouraging words, having people to support and uplift you is really important. So I want you to look around the people that you're currently spending most of your time with. And if you're not getting that nourishment from them, you feel like you're isolated, you know, you're the black sheep. I get that all the time. I'm the black sheep too. It's okay. I call myself a unicorn instead, because I like that much better. So come be with us. Come learn more about how to build this soulful sovereignty, to have the exit plan, to know that if the you know what hits the fan, that you have some other way to do things. Because at the end of the day, 2020 has taught us that we need to be prepared for the unthinkable, and that's what this is about. So all the warriors that reached out to me, that have reached out to Tara, that have reached out to Amani, that are wondering what we can do, what more we can do, how we can help ourselves, we have solutions, we have tools, we have resources, we have a very large and growing community all throughout this country and in other countries that are working towards the same common goal, which is freedom, bodily sovereignty, and being able to be free from the chains that bind. So if you have a couple of minutes at 4 o'clock, we're going to actually be jumping on a Zoom link to talk more of a private conversation. So if you would like the link, just send me a message. If you're connected with me, if you're connected with Tara or Amani, you can send them a Facebook message. If you have my text number, feel free to reach out to me. I will reach out to you and give you a copy of the Zoom link. It starts at 4. We plan to keep it an hour or under, depending on how much participation and how many questions we get. But we're going to outline for you some of the steps that we're taking in our own lives to create this soulful sovereignty, but more importantly, to create those connections. Because I think that's what so many of us are really craving, is the connection, the acceptance, that knowing that we're part of something bigger than just ourselves and the 4 walls that we're living in. So that's what we're up to. Join us. Ladies, anything that you want to add?
No, that's perfect, Steph. Excited to see anyone that wants to come on. Go ahead, Tara.
Oh, sorry, I thought you did. Just that it's 4 o'clock Eastern time. Right. 1 o'clock Pacific.
Yes, this is our West Coast gal. So she's on the West Coast. If you're there, it's 1 p.m. Pacific. Thank you for reminding me, because I only think in terms of East Coast. 4 p.m. our time, so that's a half hour away no matter where you live. Definitely plan to come on, bring your questions with you, bring your smile. It's a great opportunity, even in these calls, just to see people's faces that I know on Facebook and be able to interact with you and talk. So reach out to me if you want that link. If you're not currently on my mailing list, we know that censorship is happening. I cannot tell you how many profiles were taken down yesterday. Facebook groups, individual profiles. So we need to make sure that we back up the backup. So text Revolution to 33777. It'll keep you in touch with me in case for some reason this platform shuts down. I know, Amani, you did an amazing post yesterday that I'm going to be duplicating with all of the different places to find you. So look out for that. I'll be posting that sometime today. Any last thoughts, anything else that you want to say before we jump off and get ready for our Zoom at 4 o'clock?
No, look forward to seeing all those smiling faces, Stephanie.
Yes.
And thank you for having us on. It was great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. This is the first of many, I'm sure. So we'll be back soon. We'll see you guys at 4 o'clock. Have a beautiful day. Remember, keep showing up, keep speaking up, keep shining out. Be bold, be brave, be the change that you wish to see in the world. It is so much more important now than ever. So come join us. We are in the midst of a revolution. So we will talk to you soon. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.